So in this video, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is about to do something explosive. She's going to lay out, piece by piece, why the Republican Party looks less like an independent political movement and more like an institution with strings being pulled straight out of Moscow. This isn't exaggeration. This isn't partisan noise.
Including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going
to expose how deeply compromised the GOP has become. And the way she does it, it leaves no room for doubt. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now let's set the stage. We've heard plenty of politicians talk tough on Russia over the years, but what Crockett is about to highlight makes it clear. The party of Lincoln, the party that once bragged about standing strong against foreign adversaries, is now acting like it can't take a single step without checking how Vladimir Putin might feel about it. And she's not vague. She names names, calls out hypocrisy, and directly challenges her colleagues on whether they even have the backbone to acknowledge basic reality. This moment matters because it captures a deeper truth. The Republican Party that used to wave the flag of freedom and democracy is now hesitating to admit something as simple as who invaded who in Ukraine. That hesitation isn't just political strategy. Crockett argues it looks like allegiance, and allegiance to anything other than the American people is exactly the kind of betrayal that she warns could put the country on the edge of disaster. By the end of this, you'll see why Crockett's words land so heavily, and why the silence on the other side of the aisle speaks louder than anything they could have said.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. It's so interesting to me that we all swear an oath to the Constitution, and we say that we take that oath seriously, but when it comes into actually doing something that looks like preserving that oath or looks like preserving the Constitution, we get a little wobbly, and I'm not really understanding what's going on. Freedom of press doesn't look like kicking out the Washington Post, or actually the Huffington Post has been kicked out. We know that the Associated Press has been kicked out, and now the Washington Post is not going to allow for op-eds in any way if for some reason they criticize the sitting president of the United States. What this is starting to feel like is a smaller version of Russia. And I am trying to tell you that we are nothing like Russia. We are not supposed to be like Russia, but that is what we've got going on. And I'm sorry, I know that some of my colleagues still struggle with answering the question of who won the election in 2020. And you may have felt a way when you had social media checking people and saying, no, Trump did not win the election in 2020. That is absolutely factual. And unfortunately, because some people got all riled up because they believed the lies, they ended up getting locked up because they decided that they were going to believe the lies. They ended up at the Capitol on January 6th, and they were trying to tear this thing apart because they felt like their country was falling apart in front of their eyes because for whatever reason, there were people in power that were peddling a lie about the election. We also know, and some of y'all may still say that COVID was a hoax. COVID wasn't a hoax. Tell that to the over 1 million people that died under Donald Trump's first watch. It wasn't a hoax. So no, I do believe that it was okay. In fact, I do believe that it was ethically right for social media to check people because you had people that didn't know anything about science and decided that they were going to put out whatever lies or propaganda or conspiracy theories they wanted to, and people died. At some point in time, we have to evaluate what is factual, and I know that facts hurt y'all, and I just wish we could get on the same page, but we do know during the presidential election that the president would not go and participate in anything if fact-checking was going to be a part of it, because he didn't want to be fact-checked. We know that the vice president got upset in his vice presidential debate when he was fact-checked. It used to be a time in this country that we as members of Congress or elected officials thought that it was okay to just tell the truth. Instead, we're pushing conspiracy theories, and some of them are killing people. It's the same thing that we have coming out of Doge. It's the reason that people are dying. It's the reason that farmers are losing their farms, because we continue to peddle conspiracy theories. It is time for us to say, Mr. President, guess what? Russia invaded Ukraine. Can we at least agree on that one? Facts matter. Y'all, this is literally potentially putting us into an international crisis. We may be heading towards the next world war because we have a president that wants to pal around with Putin and wants to do everything to make him feel good, including lying about who invaded who. Mr. Chair, I got a minute left, but I really want to yield to any of my colleagues and ask them if they will say today, very basically, that when it came down to the war in Ukraine, that it was not Ukraine that invaded Russia, it was the other way around. Is there anybody in here that has enough courage to say that Russia invaded Ukraine?
You can have my time.
And this is yet the problem. This is the problem. That is not infringing upon free speech.
Will the gentlelady yield?
I will yield to the right.
Thank you, Ms. Crockett. To be clear, your challenge, I think, was across the aisle, because I think every member on your side of the aisle agrees with the obvious fact that Vladimir Putin ordered the filthy, bloody, imperialistic invasion of Ukraine. And in fact, at the time, Donald Trump as president never denied it. In fact, he praised it. He said it was, quote, an act of genius when Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine. So I would hope some of our colleagues would consent to at least that historical point, since we think history is so important. There are people who want to relive that in our oversight report.
And therein lies the problem.
The time of the general.
What happened next in that hearing was even more revealing than Crockett's opening remarks. After laying out her case, she put the question directly to them. She offered them the simplest, most obvious test of honesty. Could anyone in the room, on the record, say the basic truth that Russia invaded Ukraine? And the response? Silence. Not one Republican member leapt to their microphone to affirm what the entire world already knows. There was one faint voice somewhere in the chamber, but it wasn't even clear it came from the GOP side. The overwhelming reaction from Republicans was to say nothing, a refusal so loud it echoed more than any speech could have. That moment alone should have told you everything. This isn't about a complicated policy debate or some nuanced disagreement over foreign affairs. This was a yes or no question about a major act of war, and the party that once called itself the bulwark against Russia couldn't bring itself to answer. Crockett's challenge exposed that these lawmakers weren't speaking for themselves anymore. They were following someone else's script. And you don't even have to take her word for it. Just look back at what many of these same Republicans were saying before Donald Trump came on the scene. They were some of Ukraine's loudest defenders, calling for strong U.S. support, even financial aid, to push back against Russian aggression. Yet, under Trump's influence, that support has evaporated, replaced with excuses, hesitation, and a complete rewriting of history. Crockett's point lands hard because it highlights a transformation in real time. A party that once prided itself on toughness toward Moscow, now bending itself around Trump's grievances and Putin's narratives. If they really wanted to shut her down, they could have easily said, yes, Putin invaded Ukraine. They could have diffused her point in seconds, but they didn't. Not one of them had the courage to break from the party line and call the invasion what it is. For anyone watching from the outside, it's embarrassing and deeply unsettling. What used to be a political movement has begun to look like a political cult, with elected officials putting loyalty to a former president above loyalty to truth, above loyalty to their constituents, even above loyalty to their country. This is why moments like this matter. They reveal where power actually sits, whose talking points are being repeated,
plain and simple.
And how far some leaders will go to avoid crossing their
drawing a clear
orange
line in the
demigod.
sand. They will stop at nothing
Crockett
to
didn't
advance.
just make a speech. She held up a mirror, and what reflected back was a party too afraid or too compromised to tell the simplest truth. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe Russia really has a hold on today's GOP? Do you think Trump is protecting some secret, or is this about something else entirely? Drop your thoughts below, because the silence from Congress makes your voice even more important. Until next time, this has been American Current. Thanks for tuning in.